All right. This is here we are on the Now What Cafe on Tuesday, April 14th, and I'm here. I'm Jamin Shively, co-founder and president of Radish.org, and I am here to answer the question: what is all this Radish stuff? And under the Radish stuff is Radish.org itself, radical collective intelligence, the specific flavor of collective superintelligence we're developing on Radish, and our two big weekly meetings that we have. One is one that's actually happening right now. We are on a field trip from that meeting to here, and that meeting is the Solution Club at the beginning of the new world, formerly called the Social Club at the end of the world. We started off on a somewhat cynical and intentionally provocative banner to say, look, I mean, because here we were a bunch of us who'd been working for years on how do we wake the world up and address abrupt climate change. And since none of that was happening and the world was just continuing on this death spiral, we said, all right, look, if it's the end of the world, let's at least have a social club at the end of the world and talk about it, right? And then I'm an engineer, and I have always been thinking about solutions. How do we solve our problems, including how do we cool the planet, et cetera? And so we evolved into the Solution Club at the beginning of the new world. So that happens every Tuesday, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific time, going for a full 8 hours until 7 p.m. Pacific time. And if you think 8 hours is a long time for a meeting, wait till you hear about our other standing weekly meeting, which is every Friday, Saturday, starting at 6 a.m. Pacific time. We go for a full 24 hours nonstop. I mean, we'll pause here and there for meal breaks and whatnot. But we go for a full 24 hours until 6 a.m. Pacific time Saturday, and it's called the Collective Intelligence Block Party. And the idea is simply this. There's all these different manifestations of collective intelligence happening all over the world, including Now What, right? Including Rebel Wisdom, including Cesari's International Logic Party meetings on the Agora platform, including, there's too many to name. And what we believe is urgently needed is that we all come together, all these different collective intelligence communities and platforms and movements and missions, et cetera, that we all come together and get to know each other and work towards some form of federation. The federation could be as simple as a Craigslist, a community calendar of all the different open meetings, right? And that also begs the question, well, what is this stuff that goes into this big federation? Exactly what is it, right? And without trying to define it, I'll just describe it as these open meetings that are open for anyone to join on topics pertaining to saving life on Earth. The big picture of how do we save life on Earth? How do we cool the planet? How do we stop COVID? How do we stop the destruction of the biosphere? How do we transform ourselves into that species that can then help do its part in helping manifest, to quote Charles Eisenstein, that more beautiful world our hearts know is possible? How do we do all of it? And to answer that question, I'm just going to take us on a brief tour that will basically culminate in our view of collective superintelligence. But first, we kind of make the case for it, and in the process, we lay out our own sort of menu of topics, and we start to drill down in some of those. And this is very much a work in progress. It actually only started last week, so the menu building part, but it's the most efficient visual that I can think of. While I'm showing it, you will hear from the crows, who are part of the family. We feed the colony of crows here, and they bring all their little ones, and it's just awesome. But anyway, and while I'm sharing, don't hesitate to interrupt me, because it's not so easy to see you all when I'm sharing. So here it goes. All right. Where is my That's interesting. Okay. Okay. We're going to start with the topic map. Let's see here. Something happened there. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Now it's all clear. Okay. Okay. All right, here goes. So this first slide that I'll show you is kind of like a heat map sort of starting point for me personally. These are a lot of the topics that I think about and talk about a lot, but it's certainly not meant to be exhaustive. Think of each, follow my mouse if you can, each of these horizontal layers is a separate layer. And on the left side, you have the name of that layer, or the name of that category. So we have root causes of our problems. We have chronic world problems, as you see here. Some of these are bucket topics, like the entire bucket of our politics, economics, and our entire set of living arrangements is one big bucket of chronic world problems. Organized crime, acute world problems, hunger, destruction of the biosphere, the sixth massive extinction, COVID, planetary overheating, economic collapse. They're all interrelated, and they can all be solved holistically and simultaneously with the right mix of mega solutions. And again, some of these are categories of solutions, like economic and political transformation, veganism, that's much more targeted, but also very broad. A new story for humanity. Who are we? Why are we here? How did we get here? Where are we going? What's the mission, right? Eradicating COVID, solar radiation management, a crucial, absolutely crucial solution to cooling our planet. And then what's this weird category at the top here? Well, meta solution. What do I mean by that? I mean it in the computer science sense of that which generates. So if golden eggs are our goal, then the goose that lays them is a meta egg. It's that which generates the egg. Well, a meta solution is that which generates these mega solutions. And what is that meta solution? Collective superintelligence, which is a really big hyperobject that no one has a patent on, no one has a total lock on. There's all these different perspectives on, and yet it's something that we absolutely urgently need to manifest. At Radish, we've been cooking up our own flavor of this, but that's actually incidental. What's important is the category itself, the big hyperobject. A related topic is the urgency and criticality of collective superintelligence, and a journey to collective superintelligence. Here are some other things that didn't make the front page just because I didn't squeeze them in there, but they're all super important. This is a work in progress. These images pertain to the divine feminine here, which is one of our topics on the block party every Friday, Saturday for 2 hours. Melissa and two other awesome ladies lead a conversation on the divine feminine. Anyway, and then there are other whole categories like, what is the goal? What is the mission? What are our assets? I've talked about problems, but fine. What about our assets and asset-based thinking? And how about successes that we can build upon? The opening slide here kind of beats us up, let's face it, right? It's kind of an indictment of humanity. So, we can also look at successes and also opportunities, not just problems, but opportunities. And the big picture is that we look at it all as a big picture and seek to master it all holistically. Now, I'm going to go to a different slide deck, which requires me to do a new share, apparently. And here we go. So building off of the preceding, wait a second. It didn't change it over. Let me try that one more time. And Stephen, I'm going to ask you to let me know if it's, what the heck is going on here? All right.
Well, Rich, what are you trying to do? Maybe that would give us a projection.
I'm trying to show that. Do you see the one that only has the top row? Probably don't.
That's what I'm seeing. Yes.
Oh, you. Okay. All right.
You just moved one of your objects sideways.
There we go. That's right. That was nice. Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Okay. Well, that's super helpful. All right. And you're still seeing the same thing now, I presume. Okay. So urgency and criticality of collective superintelligence. I maintain that it's both urgent and critical, but I also want to create the topic spaces for people to challenge it. On what grounds? Well, here's two grounds. One is that it's impossible. Another is that it's possible but unnecessary. I maintain the third here, that it's possible, necessary, and urgent. So what is collective superintelligence? Again, it's a really big hyperobject. No one's got a lock on it. So there's, options for collective superintelligence, different forms, different pathways. This is discussed a little bit in the book Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom, but disappointingly, he doesn't go enough into collective intelligence, just more into AI. Again, at Radish, we're cooking up a specific formula of collective superintelligence called radical collective intelligence, or RCI. And I put this as sort of a mathematical expression that collective superintelligence will be much greater than RCI. This just kind of puts a lower bound, if anything. And as I mentioned to Ben and everyone at the beginning, I think we urgently need to create a federation of these different collective intelligence communities, right? And platforms and et cetera. All right, so let's get specific. What is this radical collective intelligence thing? And here's sort of a big picture that I'm putting into this iconic form. And it starts in the conversational domain, which is exactly where we are right now. And it sounds like with Now What and everything else that you were mentioning, Liza, y'all really are doing a great job with this. So hats off to you all. And that's, and I believe the battle will be won or lost in the conversational domain. Can we get together and talk with each other in an organized, dynamic, evolving way about our problems, about solutions, etc.? And to the extent that we can, we will come up with some really awesome visions for transforming our world, including transforming ourselves. And as these visions come into focus, we can map them out. Everything I've showed you is part of what I call a taxonomy for global transformation. This is very, it's an expression of what's in my mind, but I encourage everyone to come up with their own variations on this or whole new taxonomies or whatever. It certainly doesn't represent to be complete. A whole separate part is the solution engine, and I won't go into details on that now, but it includes starting from a specific taxonomic map of a whole world, in its fullest, richest sense of the meaning whole world. And from there, leverages the brainstorming methodology to generate open source style, all the possible solutions that one could possibly think of just in the form of idea, as expressed in a few words or a combination of words, that maps to all the deficits, if you will, in terms of meeting the needs of a whole world, including the deficit of cooling the planet. We're overheating, we need to cool it, people are hungry, we need to feed them, we need to, et cetera, et cetera. So solution engine, and it also includes something like, it's best described as a GitHub of solutions, whereas GitHub focused just on software. This would be all manner of solutions of any kind: political, mechanical, physical, geoengineering, you name it, all in the solution engine. And then of the solutions which are generated, to the best of our ability, we must model them. We must programmatically, systematically model these solutions and how they would play out in the world, both intended and unintended consequences. And the aim of all this, well, within that modeling, we model not just individual solutions, but entire sets of solutions. And the Holy Grail is a holistic set of solutions, which does the very best that we possibly can at saving life on Earth and solving our problems. Now, again, I mentioned the battle will be won or lost in the conversational domain. So here's a slide in progress about the conversational domain that has not been put into artwork yet. But the whole point of this is orchestrating, architecting, and organizing the world's conversations, building off of Google's mission to organize the world's information. Conversations are information in the process of evolution, as I like to think about it. And, you know, let me go back a slide and just mention that first of all, the conversational domain permeates all other domains. So whether it's people working on how to model a certain aspect of the world or building out a certain part of the taxonomy, you can have conversations about all those. And our big picture idea about the conversational domain is just imagine the following visual: a massive meadow that spans hundreds of acres, and on that meadow are millions of flowers, right? And on each of these flowers, bumblebees congregate, and they'll spend some time in a certain flower, and then they'll go off to another flower. Now, just imagine visually that all these flowers are growing up. Here, I'll just go onto video here, make it a little easier. So imagine visually that all these flowers are growing up at basically the same rate, right? So the height of the flowers is constant across all the flowers, and it's going up over time. It's constantly rising. Just take that as a visual. And then the bumblebees who go from flower to flower, those are human beings. Let's say there's 8 billion bumblebees in this meadow, and we congregate around a given flower or other. That's to say we're in a given conversation or other, right? And we hang out in that conversation. We ride it for a while as the slow-moving elevator of that conversation, the growing flower, goes up. We ride it for a while, and then we hop over to another conversation and ride that for a while, and then maybe go do something else for a while, and then join another conversation and ride that for a while. So we're constantly cross-pollinating among the different flowers that are conversations. Each of these flowers, in turn, and this is in the ideal state, once we've reached this sort of maxed out state of collective superintelligence, that each of these flowers, these conversations, as it progresses, is leaving behind a transcript of everything that's said and who said what. That transcript of all that is said is then indexed in real time so that it's made searchable in real time, so that you could do an advanced search that says, I'm looking for conversations about SRM solutions that involve mirrors in the ocean that are happening right now. Not that happened last week, but that are happening right now. And so, well, out of the millions of conversations that are happening right now, these are the ones that map closest to what you're looking for. Check them out. You can peer in, listen to them in real time if they're being broadcast, which ideally all conversations would be, et cetera. And then you can jump in. Now, so that's one scenario, is people searching for and jumping into conversations that they think they would like to be a part of because they have something to contribute or they have something to learn or whatever, right? By the way, please interject if you have any questions or comments, okay? Because I can talk. And another modality is that people who are part of this network or this federation self-identify and say, hey, I'm really good at, analyzing problems like this, or coming up with solutions like that, or designing components like this. Basically, just state what you're good at, put it in words. If uploading your resume helps, please do that, etc. And so that if anyone has a request for someone with a certain specialty or combination of specialties or whatever, then you can receive those requests. They don't necessarily know that you personally have received those requests. That'd be an invasion of your privacy, unless you wanted to be totally open about all requests that you've received, but that's up to you. But you would be able to respond to whatever requests are coming at you and say, yes, so a certain conversation that might be working on a given solution might require, a biologist, an oceanographer, a civil engineer, and someone who's an expert in marine permaculture. Bring those 4 people together, boom, then they can have the conversation. If somebody's missing, you put out the request, and hopefully someone will answer it. And so that's what I wanted to say about the conversational domain, is that it leaves behind, I think, Stephen, you and I were talking about conversational exhaust or data exhaust, right? So this maxes out on data exhaust. Each of these conversations is leaving behind not just its transcript, but its video recording, right? Which is rich with data. Look at how I'm using my hands right now, right? a deep learning algorithm could then correlate when Jamin's using his hands, it's something he's really passionate about, right? So let's help guide Jamin to those conversations where he can express that passion, right? And et cetera. So that's what I was saying about the conversational domain. And going back to that slide deck. Okay, we're back to the double blue arrows. Stephen, do you see that? Do you see this circle?
I do. I see the double blue arrows.
Okay, great.
It's like the recycle thing.
But. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. So, okay, so then back to this slide that I was showing. So if that's the general framing for the conversational domain that I'm envisioning, what are some of the subtopics under conversational domain? Well, let's identify the communities that are in conversation right now, right? And another topic is taxonomies of topics for conversation, like what I've been sharing, but let's open that up. Contexts and framing for conversations, types and classes of conversations, navigation and search through taxonomies of topics, of conversations, etc. Strategic vectors within the conversational domain, federation of communities and conversations, cultures, rules, and philosophies of conversation. Sounds like y'all are like really good at all this stuff. Anyway, that gives a bit of an overview of kind of the big picture as we at Radish are thinking about it. And one last thought that I'll share is another visual, and this is very quick. Let me just make sure I have it up. Yep. Okay.
It seems a little bit you're on a quest of creating a TAI. Which,
what's a TAI?
It's a TLA of, it's basically a topic access interface, or a three-letter acronym is my post TLA.
Yeah.
But the you don't have an API designer in a way to look at all these areas you're in. You're talking about cross-pollination and dynamic access to the, for whatever interest party. Like, I referred to the library. The Dewey Decimal System was our early index, but now we move beyond indexes. Things have to have sort of a rule-based coupling where the rules are globally known, but for interfacing, but the access is completely dynamic, and so therefore the objects are completely can combine in any dynamic order because they all know the rules of engagement.
Wow. Super cool. So next generation indexing is how I'm going to think about that.
Yeah, we got Dewey Decimal. We'll just keep going. The other part that I've been thinking about and in the area, I as we virtualize our existence in many different ways, we're virtualizing off of our biology. We're, in a sense, when I think of the Earth, the Earth has been in 4 billion years in the growth. I'm a polytheist, which I believe bacteria is God. And I went into a restroom the other day and someone's leaving saying, "Oh my Lord." And, so there's a falling. It just happens to be at a distance. I like that one joke. But the bacteria formed so many of the life forms that are today, the plants, the animals. It's the majority of us, more of us as bacteria. And so in a sense, the bacteria has created a superorganism when we call ourselves humans, but we're really just a big assembly of bacteria and other organisms. And now us people, along with other creatures of this earth, are organizing differently into a global organism. Earth has now all of a sudden it's sprouted eyes out into space, and eyes looking back in, and sensors sensing new wavelengths of energy. And so we're giving all this new functionality to Earth, and as an organism. And so now you're trying to say, okay, now we want to, as organisms, we want to collaborate different, but we want to collaborate as one Earth-based organism. So Earth is bringing alive into a new life form. So it's a form, it's through these virtual mediums, which we call ideas. But these ideas create real structures and real feature sets. And some of them are a problem. Some of them may be like that bad bacterial interaction that leaves us in the bathroom for a while, leaving saying, "Oh my Lord."
For me.
Or, but others really make us really an amazing dynamic human being. And we forget about them. But that's with Earth, and that's like where I think a lot of this is going. And so when I think of your graphs, I can't think of it in these two-dimensional models. I just can't wrap my head around that, because what we're trying to model and what we're trying to interact and what we're trying to cross-access is really active. It's in motion, and depending on what point of time and location you put it on, and what axis of view and what filter you attach, shows you a different subset meaning or whatever, or gives you access to a certain area. And it's almost like you need to create like this organism map to base all the library of information as we're building the superorganism. And so the super intelligence isn't just super intelligence; it's the intelligence to the superorganism. And that was
Totally.
complete.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
I was complete.
Okay, awesome. No, I love it. The way I think about CSI, collective superintelligence, it's both the platform and process by which we transform into a superorganism. And then it's also at that moment, if there is a moment, right? Let's assume there is a moment when we go from 8 billion individuals to a single superorganism. It becomes the brain of that superorganism. So it's sort of like Sherpa along the journey, or its vehicle, really, its platform and vehicle for each of us to transform as individuals, but more importantly for us to transform as a species to make this phase shift. And then once the phase shift is complete, it is the brain. It remains as the brain, the mind.
Yeah, and this has so many philosophical complexities to it because of who am I? The who am I question is a killer question. It really gets complicated when you can duplicate yourself and keep in communication with your duplicates, so you find the best party. But then your question is, if there's 5 of me, who am I? And so you're going in that direction. And even before that, we start expanding ourselves. We start, in the formation of life, there's 2 basic elements that life can use as a platform. One is carbon, one is silicon. And as we're springing into the super organism, we're also bringing into the concept of the super being. So we're already starting to do hybrid, a silicon base, silicon life form along with carbon-based life form. So that's starting to merge. But then we start looking at, we're now making this cross-platform. We're then saying, well, okay, our DNA is 1% deviation of a chimpanzee, which is true. But we feel a little bit intimidated by that, so we want to go for 10%. Then we look at the octopus and sees it has more DNA than we do, and of course, in the keeping up with the Joneses or the Squidwards, we have to add more DNA to our thing. And then, well, what feature set do you want in your DNA? Well, I want cross-species communication. So then all of a sudden, we start ending at this, but now we're in the philosophical, who am I? Are we the Borg? And did we develop as humans and as beings, and the ethics, the values, the things that make us a quality super being, but and we're struggling with just being a quality simple being. I struggle with that, because we're going for this altitude, we're caught on the ascension trap or the progress trap, and we haven't really solved how do we become better people.
Well, I love that you brought in bacteria originally, because this would be like, imagine a bunch of bacteria got together and said, how do we be better bacteria? Well, the solution is to become humans. And then some of us humans become microbiologists, et cetera. And then we solve that problem. And likewise, I really believe that by becoming this collective super intelligence, this super, what did you call it? A super being? Let's just call it a super being until you edit me better. The way to become better individuals is to become a super being. And then that super being.
I don't know if it's a super being or just a super organism, because is an entity inside you, a bacteria. So we don't know, that may be a being.
I'm assuming it is. I mean, it is a being. These bacteria from which we came. Look, prior to the Cambrian explosion, we were all unicellular, right? Cambrian explosion comes along. We start trying out all these weird forms. And it's this brutal game of musical chairs that goes round and round and round and round. And now here we are, so many hundreds of millions of years later. But still, we're an assemblage of bacteria. And now I think we're ready to be the next unit to be assembled together into the super being, or the super organism.
It's interesting because I often see very many behavioral echoes go on. I remember seeing a documentary called not to mess it up. It's the Death by Design, and Death by Design was really talking about the intercell communication and in bacteria communication, and how the cells there's this weird decision process that no one really understands. That when a cell dies, it doesn't die; it commits suicide. So it collapses in itself, so it's easily evacuated out of the entity. And so when you're born, you're really born with this one hand, and then cells die. They die and exit, and it creates fingers. So it's an overpopulation and a subtraction that creates the final form. And so I'm looking at the experiments where they're doing, and they're showing these petri dishes. And then later on the evening, I go to an ecstatic dance. And in this one, they had a balcony overlooking the floor. And I'm looking at the floor, and it looks like the whole jumble. There's just overpopulation. And then I start seeing these forms starting to clump up, and people started leaving the floor. There was all these leaving, then there's just these people laying on the floor in certain clumps. And it sort of looked like the Petri dish in Death by Design. And I'm like looking at, wow, did the bacterial then cellular behavior then become really the community of us? Then that community expressed the same behavior of the cells that were in the Petri dish.
Wow.
I want to talk, but I hate being recorded. I don't want to stop you from
Oh
recording.
no, I'm going to pause. We're recording now. Okay, after a pause, back to you, Stephen. Sorry for interrupting.
Who's Stephen? Never, I'm just joking.
That's right. You've disappeared your identity as individual, and you're now a super organism. There's just us. Hey, where shall we go? We're just kind of thinking out loud internally here within our super brain.
But it could be something really interesting to take the API of the Zoom, and here you have these breakouts, and add some kind of randomizer. And even if you can just stick the person, like they can't escape for like a certain number of minutes. So they actually have to hang in there and deal with it for a minute, and then they can leave.
Oh, dude, I totally got it. Speed dating / speed networking, because what's the difference, right? Over Zoom. We just schedule it and then click.
So who clued you into my dating life? It's just like...
No, you'll be 5 minutes per person, and then at the end of 5 minutes, bam, you're automatically transferred on, and we'll have this kind of, post meeting, follow-up services. Like if both are green light, then data gets transferred as per agreement, etc. Anyway, speed networking. We'll call it speed networking. Everybody knows that there's going to be a dating aspect in there, right?
Well, yeah, sex sells, so you got to put that. I mean, that's the magic of Burning Man is you just, my most magical experience is someone I just ran into while biking. I mean, almost quite literally. You know, and you're in that moment, and you just, and some, it's nice positive energy, and taking advantage of the positive energy, and and some of those people have been my friends for a decade or so. I mean, you know, just uh and if I was ever to reach out or find them, or any other instance implementation, there is no way I would actually become their friend.
Right.
it,
Right.
it had to be that magical weird moment, and I think we're all personally trying to get into that moment, because it is so beautiful and magical, and and once you've experienced it, you want another one. But we don't know how to create it because it's magic.
Well, Stephen, if there's anyone who could create it, I'd say it'd be you. And if there's anyone who could, imagine our multidimensional way into, if there was any one person. Now, what could possibly top one person is us, the collective. So it's happening right now, and we have actually everyone in the room we need. Emery is an accomplished stained glass artist, and up in Montreal, Canada. Anyway, we've got a beautiful mix here. So I say let's just do it. Um, you know, Imagine yourself from that point. Let's imagine ourselves on the top of this tower, looking out over the city, building off of your story, Stephen, because he's been intimately involved in Burning Man and building the city and built architecting it, and then standing at the tower at the very beginning. So let's stand at that point and imagine this n-dimensional Burning Man, not just three-dimensional, but n-dimensional, because it's as many dimensions as the database you want to create, Buster, right? So here we are in the middle of this n-dimensional space of all these conversations happening on all these exotic mashups of topics with rules and even cultures, and frankly, whatever other initial conditions one wants to instantiate for a given conversation. So you just got this Cambrian explosion of conversations happening, each exposing themselves. Talk about boundarylessness. Each exposing themselves to the rest of the playa, the virtual playa, in whatever ways they want. You want to go naked, go naked. You want to dress like whoever, dress like whoever. It's okay.
Yeah, it's the cool part about Burning Man is because it's the deep, the principles I think really need to come into it, and that's an interface that I think, a common interface that really helps the 100th monkey scenario. The decommodification is not just ripping logos, covering up the U-Haul truck label or whatever. It's delabeling people. I'm frustrated because sometimes this commercialization is commoditizing people. Where Tutu Tuesday, when you see someone in a tutu, it's just somebody wearing a tutu. It's a guy wearing a tutu. It doesn't mean anything. It just means they're wearing a tutu. You decommodify, delabel. The other aspect that is really, I think, instrumental on the interface is the gift economy. And the gift economy is really weird. It's super cool because it's against the gift economy to trade. If someone gives you something, you do not owe them anything. It's a gift. So you learn through this process, is recognizing what people need and realizing I've got what they need and giving it to them. And then there's the other thing is that when someone gives you something, you receive in gratitude. And so this is a new exchange model. I mean, so it's really beautiful to be given, and I've been given things I didn't even know how to ask for, but I really needed. Someone out of the blue just gives it to me. I didn't even ask for it or anything, and all of a sudden the gratitude of being seen really just opens you up in a lot of different ways to new experiences. And I think there's these mechanisms that are really hard, that when you're at Burning Man, you're trying, how do I bring this off the playa? how do I take that experience? How do I take this experience of being hot and grumpy, and all of a sudden one person gives me something and it changes everything? And the go from that large dynamic just doesn't happen in real life. It just like rips right through you, opens you up, and then all of a sudden the new experience comes in, something that you wouldn't had your mind open to before. All of a sudden you're getting a breather and a drink of water and a talk, and all of a sudden your mind just goes, wow, I couldn't even have accepted that 10 minutes ago. And now it's really life changing. So that's where the simulation of how do we bring that simulation, and so where you're at with, like, I almost keep thinking with your flowers, you need this intertopic interface to cause these dynamic couplings and interchanges to happen. But then I'm like thinking of the burning model, the human condition, and how the human physiology and life wounds and triggers and experiences have to have this weird combination run right through it before all of a sudden everything else starts making sense. I don't know. That's the challenging creative problem.
Sounds like I dropped into a gift economy conversation inspired by Burning Man. Huh? I just want to say hello and goodbye again. You're welcome to hang out here as long as you like.
Thank you.
My wife's waiting for me downstairs and a cocktail.
Already.
It's been a long day.
And
But, thank you so much for coming by.
You're welcome. Thank you for hosting, and we're recording, so help yourself to the recording, etc.
Right, yes.
I guess it'll be on your love to see it posted, whatever. That's up to you.
Are you using it is it going to the cloud?
Yeah, I presume it is, because I only had the record button. I didn't have the option to record to mic.
Actually, I'm not sure it can go to the cloud. I don't know if I have that set up here. So it's probably going to be on your hard drive. But if you
Okay.
put it on YouTube, I can add it to our playlist. Or if you
Beautiful.
want to put it in Dropbox, and I'll download it either way. But YouTube would be easiest, and then I can just check off the box.
Yeah, happy to do YouTube. No problem.
Great. All right. Well, great to meet you all, and look forward to next time.
Likewise.
Maybe I'll be over in your territory.
Awesome. Welcome anytime, Ben. Would love to have you and friends anytime.
Cool. We'll have to brainstorm around that. Okay. Yeah. Please feel free to carry on and hang out.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. And we are recording. Stephen, I think you were in the middle of a thought.
I tried to wrap it up, so it opened it up and allowed other people to jump in, like Ben. But I don't know, James or Nolan or Emma or Liza want to jump in on this active theme.
Yeah, jump in, James. And by the way, Emery, it's actually pronounced Emery. IMRE.
Thank you.
The original. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, I think that the Burning Man idea there was a great way of putting it as well, and drawing people in as well to the conversation. And as Stephen said there as well, if you have them if you have to trap them for a small while initially before they get into the conversations, so that would be the platform to kind of give them the message that all the conversations are holistically based around finding solutions anyway to all the problems that we have to try and save in the world. So they get that initial message then going in, regardless. And like what you were saying about the random conversation being thrown into like a speed dating thing, that's another good take on it as well. But what you could also, like, some people might not want that. They might want to choose which conversation they want to go into. So you could have the two options, like you would on a PlayStation, and you'd say, "Oh, I choose whether I'm going to fight this guy or whether I'm going to fight this guy," or then you could let the PlayStation throw on random, push the button, and the PlayStation will choose which fighter you fight. So you know what I mean? Have the option there, but so they can either be thrown into a random conversation, but they know that the premise is that they're holistically based around finding solutions, and they also know that the conversations are recorded, so that basically give them the message at the very start when they're coming into it. It's a great idea.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think we're on fire here, so let's keep rocking. Absolutely love it. What I was thinking is, from Burning Man, what if we did something called burning life to convey that it's ongoing, right? Burning life or burning future or burning cloud or burning Zoom or, you know,
Burning the candle.
huh?
Burning the candle.
It's the effigy. The irony of Burning Man is the burning the effigy of man is renewal. And I mean, so there's what's going on in the festival. There's a huge amount of ceremony, you've, and they're really powerful ceremonies. I mean, our camp did ceremony that really just gripped people. I mean, you know, there's very interesting exhibits and stuff. The ceremony of the Burning Man happened on Saturday night, and it was the culmination of the event. So we're burning the burning the effigy of man is the beginning of renewal, but then the next night is burning the temple. And the temple is a sacred place set up, and it's a beautiful thing, and people go to cry and to marry and to do all the things people do at temples. They put pictures of loved ones with notes and so forth. And it's interesting because the contrast of the two nights, there's this burning the man is a celebration of that transformation, the celebration, and then the temple burn is the night of reflection, and it cauterizes all your experiences and closes those into a little neater thing. But I mean, it's like when the man burns, there's all the music, art cars are going thump thump thump, lights are in the sky, and it's just, you know, everyone's making noise, and it's mass chaos, and it gets even more chaotic. And then what always grips me about the temple burn is that you have like 70,000 people sitting in complete silence, and they don't start the fire until everything dies down, and everyone is just in the dark looking at this structure that's in the dark. And then the little flame lights up, and then it goes. And these ceremonies are a human process we need to go through. And I think one of the challenges in a lot of these, because we're talking to humans, we're trying to bring humans through these experiences to open ourselves up to new connections and new ways. We really need all these ceremonies to facilitate our human process, and that in the online sense, I almost like, you know, in the creating the super being. I think something would be lost if we didn't somehow. What is the superhuman experience ceremony? What is the ceremonies that super intelligence needs to be?
Wow, brilliant, brilliant.
I've completed for the moment.
My brother Stephen, you are just getting started. And in Burning Man speak, I think you're just getting warmed up.
It's funny, in my camp, everyone was so, there was a real tension in our camp, because there was one that really wanted to work on the human process, human development, and the inner camp experience. And the other one really wanted to just wow everyone with a big production show, have these big name authors and artists and so forth. And it was very interesting in the human process and in art. One of the things that really grabbed me is the production people just want to wow you nonstop. They want to put you through a roller coaster ride of sensation nonstop. And the human process side is I need space to digest. And there's this tension, and nobody could figure out the words for this. And I'm trying to convey, well, the real between the stimuli. And one of the pieces of work that really blew me away, and that I think we can all remember back to the experience, is Space Odyssey 2001. Stanley Kubrick, it's such an interesting folding. He created a movie about space using space. And if you watch that movie, you'll see these moments of space, and he gives you these moments to digest. And even at the end, where I think of the end, where it's this beautiful orchestra music and it's going and going, and then the credits are going and they're gone, and it's just black. And you'd be sitting in the movie and theater, and you're still like, 5 minutes on more, you're going, and it's just this music. And I'm sure theater owners hated him for that. And they were like going, that's dead time. We should be cleaning the popcorn off the floor. And he's thinking of the 3 people that just sat there and got value out of having space, and what it meant to them. And that's the gift that offered. But it was really an amazing movie and an art, and shows the demonstration of art. But he created this high-tech film, which it took about 2,000 hours of technology research to anticipate what that would be. But a movie about space, and if you look at it, he used space to create the movie about space.
Beautiful. My goodness. Wow. There is so much we have to learn from Burning Man, from you, and from the collective superintelligence that we're assembling. Other bacterium like you.
That's a compliment.
So round up your neighbors, okay, and bring them to the party. Seriously. Because, it's now or never, right? This is one of those serendipitous Burning Man-like moments in all of our lives where it's like it just happened now. It just happened. It's happening. And do I go with it? And you know the answer before the question was even posed.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, how do I take over a town?
Well, we've got the blank slate. That's the beautiful thing. This is Burning Man before Burning Man was even thought of. And we're now having the thought, and it's a collective thought, right? Let's just call it burning life for the moment, right? And then throw in time for T for the time dimension, and it's BLT. But it's a vegan BLT. All right. So Operation BLT, burning life. I love that you brought in ceremony.
You know how states have birds and things? Well, it's funny you use BLT, because Burning Man, the official food of Burning Man is bacon.
How vegan can you get? So anyway, this will be, anyway. So Operation BLT, we know we need ceremony. We know we need, we know we need that. We need 10 new principles, basically, right? That are both a dimensional enhancement upon Burning Man, but not so much, because look, you'll never be able to recreate Burning Man in the cloud, obviously. So it's not a Burning Man plus, or no. It's something that it needs to honor and respect the Burning Man, right?
I don't know if it has to, nor does Burning Man ask that. I think the idea of Burning Man was to take societal experimentation and change to a creative new level. So the idea is not to copy it, but to creatively spin off. And I think so. You're really touching on some interesting notes with your effort here, with the superintelligence work. And so when you're really thinking about this, the artists are really our insight into human development. And so we really need to bring art into this, not just be a technical conversation, but it's also you touched on 10 principles. So the question may be, for this effort and this creative exercise, what are those 10 principles? And then you may want to think, what are the transformative ceremonies that should be instituted as practices in your medium here to facilitate the human process of processing what happens in these meetings. And I think I've seen reoccurrence, like just today with Denise talking about honoring the feminine. The feminine's not about barging in the conversation and owning the conversation. And we need a principle around inclusion that makes this a safe space. So it's interesting because we can look at the Burning Man 10 principles and saying, do we want to take them and reword them slightly, or as is? What are the 10 principles of super intelligence?
James, yeah. And just jump in, folks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there now as well, Stephen. And I'm also thinking like the idea that you mentioned about the Space Odyssey 2001. I like that you mentioned that as well, because and the artist situation. Because I'd like to share just a picture, if you don't mind. It's just some research work that I did for, but it's only an old picture, but it give you an idea of what I'm talking about if I get it up here. Where is it there now? Oh, yeah. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's a piece I did in my third year of college, and I used the shape, which only occurred to me afterwards when I was building it, that it was similar to the shape in the Space Odyssey, but I was using it as a platform based on the art I was working on at the time was epitaphs, basically, like, and I used one of Plato's sayings as the epitaph on that, as a kind of a final. It was my way of saying that this was an epitaph for the final memorial for all of humanity, which will only be left here after we're gone. Whereas in Space Odyssey 2001, it arrived at the very beginning and changed the course of humanity, so to speak. This was being left behind after we've basically messed it all up, you know what I mean? So that was the message I was trying to get through. Like, I'm sorry, Leona, I'll just go back to the share again. But I'll just get up the share there again if you don't mind. That was I don't know if you can read that there now. Can you read that?
We couldn't read the words, huh?
And your video is frozen.
You can or you can't?
Could not.
We could not.
All right, I'll just read the words that were on it anyway. So, there will be no end to the troubles of states or of humanity itself, till philosophers become kings in this world, or till those we now call kings and rulers really and truly become philosophers. That's Plato.
Brilliant.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you didn't have you got it up there now? Yeah, sorry.
Now we can see it. Now we can see it, James.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I forgot to click the tick box. Yeah.
What a beautiful quote. What a beautiful quote. In fact, one could say that, one of the missions among many of collective superintelligence is to instantiate exactly what that quote says. Because this is the ultimate, I mean, look, properly done, this will evolve to become the ultimate philosophy, refinement and mashing up engine, to use very crude words, right?
Yeah, but an interesting take would be using that epitaph as a platform for putting up your 10, as Stephen was saying, 10 principles for the block party and the collective intelligence as well. Like, so there'd be kind of 10 guiding, philosophies or whatever, so to speak. But it'd be an interesting way of putting them up or getting, the unofficial rule book, so to speak.
Well, you see that piece there's a lot of controversy on that piece because that people are trying to guess what Kubrick was thinking with it, because the obelisk would appear at moments of great transition. So the first scene was where all the monkeys were getting along, they figured it out, and then it appears, and all of a sudden, the violence of territorialism and things erupted. This was then a transformation that turned them from the animals into more human behavior like animals. Then the next transition happened where they discovered on the moon, after they're sending this AI mission, this mission into it, after another obelisk like it, to Saturn, and then the last transition is rebirth, with and it was a super being, the baby in space. So there was, when they went through the transformation, the final transformation, when he went through the obelisk versus just being around it. So yeah, the symbol, he used it as a symbol of transformation. And that movie really bothers me. It's good in that regard. It still bothers me.
Yeah, it feels like we're on the cusp of it, right?
Oh, so you bring in it. What is it?
It is that meme that once we co-create it here, which we're about to do, it is just like, it's just gonna explode. You tell it to your friend, they tell 10 friends quickly, and they say, oh my God, you got to talk with Steven because you've got to learn about it.
So let's popcorn. Nolan, what's it?
It is a weird, interconnected, hyper object, hyper being that's just now coming out of the birth canal.
Burning it, because we're burning IT. We're burning down the temple of IT, of social networking, of Google, of monetizing this and monetizing that and monetizing clicks. And you can only be on for so many minutes unless you pay us money. Burning it. That way, burning becomes a state of being. It's not a place anymore. It's not a time.
So who else wants to? What is it?
It is definitely a place where you can have your say and also find out that you're not on your own, that there's plenty out there that would be of similar mind. And we're all here for the same reason. You'll find that you're not the only one worried about the stresses and the toils and the pending disasters in life. There's plenty out there, and there's plenty of people you can find comfort even in talking to, regardless of what the conversation results in the conversation. It's a form of comfort as well, and collective comfort in that sense too.
Burning it. We're not alone. And show the obelisk. Burning it. We're not alone. Show the obelisk. That's it. Burning it. It brings it. It's a secret love child between Burning Man and 2001.
So who else? Lisa, you want to? I'm messing up. Irma? How do you pronounce your name again?
Emery. Just
Emery.
imagine an E at the beginning. Emery.
Okay.
I was just thinking of names. I don't have one to offer. A lot of them were ridiculous. But I was just thinking what the possibilities are and enjoying your conversation. I don't have much to add.
So that is it.
That is sadly
It
it.
is.
I'm actually really enjoying. I'm getting a tiny bit of work done, and this is actually really interesting to have.
Well,
Cool.
I paused recording for when you were speaking there.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Unless you want me to just let it roll, I'm happy to let it roll too. Or I can try to whack-a-mole every
Problem
time.
child.
Huh?
I'm such a problem child. I apologize. No, I just I would say that I think it's really interesting to come up with the intentions and with the new tenements of how this would take place. I mean, you're going to have new discoveries on what your energy and your ideas can create for that space. That'll be new and different, but will carry some of the spirit that does take place when you do have it happening in person. And this one I look forward to because it's so hot. And I know that that's part of it. And that's part of what makes that such an attractive experience. But I have to tell you, I really didn't want to become, part of the experience where people had to take care of me. So I just not a fan of the heat. So I would be really looking forward to whatever you create and be happily participate and happily invite some crazy performance / live artists to the table once you get going.
IT, imaginal terrain.
Imaginal terrain.
I like that.
Imaginal terrain. That's right. In order for the imaginal cells to do their job,
We need a new landscape.
they need some terrain to take
We
their
need a new
their
landscape.
ATVs, their imaginal cell ATVs out onto and tear it up. Imaginal terrain.
Yeah, well, the terrain is really good because it's nice to bring a sense of land or grounding or going to a place, right?
Right. And I mean, I really hooked on your revealing or that your idea of the storefronts. And I played around with augmented reality stuff and I kept thinking like a cell phone app where it just shows breadcrumbs and you follow the breadcrumbs and it leads you to something so a storefront. And you could even like have a blank storefront, but you hold your phone up and you see the snarky name that would not be politically correct to post in public, like they have at Burning Man. And you then go in there and you have the experience of whatever the Burning Man store owner decided to give as an experience. And they may have gifts where they give people gifts, and so that could be very interesting discovery, where you discover it for the breadcrumbs of.
Yeah, and everybody engaging and involving their own talent, how they design the space that they present, and then also you have people who do Second Life and others, so you can end up in a Second Life community. You can end up in all different kinds of an artist workshop. I mean, there's so many different things that people can create in their home and really bring forward their creativity in the same ways in which they did. I remember I contributed to building, I don't know if you remember all those large Easter heads.
Mm-hmm.
I helped put, my friend built those for one of your community members, and then one ended up in my house after Burning Man, and then it ended up by the trash for 2 months. So
if it doesn't get burnt, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. But I could just imagine, just from that, remembering those Easter heads, that the Easter Island heads, totem heads, how many things people could create within their home.
Cool.
So I'm really into ephemeral, temporary art that doesn't hurt the earth. And I build mandalas out of bird seed, and then the birds come and eat them up.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. That's
one thing I wanted to do were like take old photos of loggers, clear cutting, because that's really horrible, right? And I wanted to make those out of baking flour or out of bird seed. I thought that could be really cool, and then just have nature come and eat it up. Because
oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I was just going to say, because, we're cleaning the slate now and we're allowing nature back into our world and learning to have a healthy relationship with Mother Earth and all species. And so we have to learn to, if we make marks, it can't hurt the earth any longer. And that's
And
what I
maybe
love.
that's kind of the
about this.
boundaries for people for participation. Is
Well,
that
one of the things she touched on was a principle of Burning Man called immediacy. And so art can be in a moment and then the moment's gone.
Yes.
And so there's literally, you go back and it's gone. There's
Yeah.
no, I mean, I've walked into these circus-like scenes, and I remember there was this woman serving popcorn, and I thought she looked like a friend of mine. And then she said a funny thing to me. She says, "I'll see you tomorrow night." And it was just an odd thing to say. And then the next night I'm riding around and go, wait a minute, let me go back there. So I find the same place, and it's dark. There's nothing there. It was gone. There was no tomorrow night. It just, there was this feeling of this party goes on.
Well, it also brings us into honorism, you know, like the dream quality. Like all of life is really a dream, right? Life is but a dream. I think that's really beautiful, you know, that it takes you across that threshold from into questioning, well, what is reality, you know? And are we in a waking dream? Because when you described it, for me, it was like a dream, you know?
It felt like that when I was in the event, because it was surreal. It was very you know, it was very circus-like, and it was vibrant and live. A lot of things were going on, French art and other things, and it is weird that and when she said, "I'll see you tomorrow night," it called me to come back the next night. But then when I got there was nothing there. I mean, it was gone.
Things with puppets, I think that could be really interesting as well. Like puppets made out of upcycled trash and materials that we find, and start having these surreal conversations with these little creatures, you know,
So,
about the earth.
Emery, what is it? Sorry, I forgot. Were you complete? I should have.
Well, I got the T part. I'm still working on I.
P.
T for terror. I don't know. Termination. T. Inevitable. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. IT was great, but you know, I have to think quite deeply on this IT. It remains unsolved here at the moment.
Unsolved mysteries.
It's the unknown, the great unknown.
Well, one of the cool things about burning it is it's whatever you want it to be, baby.
Yeah. Well, if you need it to go, it's gone. If you need it, it's there.
You can start with the opening, maybe do something opposite and start with a burning tradition to burn the world that we came from, moving into the new world we need to create.
That's
Well,
a ceremony.
the world is burning, right? So
Absolutely. So let's throw a party. The world's burning.
Burning world, burning planet.
Well, the burning life is interesting. That's resonated with me because all the burners. That's what Burning Man people are called, burners.
I know, but so are Bernie supporters, and right now I'm hurting.
Yeah, I know. It was like, you know, there's all these images of Burning Man. Bernie Sanders at Burning Man looking like, you know, the hot stud with the, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Bernie Man. But the burners often talk about how do we bring this experiment into real life. And I'm, you know, kind of just like thinking, you know, the burning life, because we actually call this the default world. Because everyone kind of has just accepted this is the reality. It's default, and we don't know. We're trying to figure out how do we make reality 2.0. And so where it goes from Burning Man to burning life, it's like real life. I mean, so it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, you know, yeah, because see, burning life could be the world that we're in the process of co-creating. right? And it has to be created to a certain degree before we can actually step into it, right? In the meantime, we're burning it, right? Burning it on the way to burning life.
What about burning Libra?
Burning Libra, that's interesting.
Well, you know, I think it's the age of Libra. We're going into the age of Aquarius, isn't it?
Well, what's interesting about that is that Facebook's currency that they're starting, we're entering age of Aquarius, says Melissa, but the Libra is the Facebook cryptocurrency that they're starting with 100 corporations, you know, anteing up whatever 10 million each or whatever the heck it is. And so burning Libra is like letting go.
Just burn the money, yeah.
Well,
Virtual money.
That's just ironic because I didn't even know that. Like, you know what
That's
I mean?
funny.
It then becomes a double entendre. We're leaving the old, age of Libra, which is all about weights and measures and slicing and dicing and monetizing everything, which is turning it into this zero-dimensional metric.
Into a magical gift economy.
The magical gift economy. That's it. We graduate. That's burning life. Is
Exactly.
Burning Man takes off, and we're on the Jefferson airplane of burning it.
So funny because I keep thinking of the gift economy, and when you witness the effect it has on people, that the currency shifts to people seeing what others around them need. Versus trying to figure out how do I exchange with them to get what I need. And you all of a sudden, there's this experience of transformation into this magical world where you repay people through gratitude and you receive gifts from people who see you. And that currency model is just, we can't even wrap our heads around it. But when you go into that experience of it, it's like all of a sudden it changes everyone's behavior to see each other and to see everyone as a gift and to receive each other as through radical inclusion with gratitude. So this magic happens, and it's very unique. I mean, I always, like I remember seeing these two guys bicycling towards each other, and they couldn't negotiate. There wasn't sides to the road per se. There's no rules on that. And they were trying to navigate, and they just crash right into each other. They fall back onto the ground, and then they just start laughing. And they get up and they dust each other. They go and they just hug each other. They get back on their bikes and ride off. And I was like, wow, is that an attitude shift?
Totally. Oh my goodness. Well, when you're talking about the currency and all that, for me, it's just like the more you open your heart, the more you're just going to be giving, because with your heart open, then you can really feel into other people's worlds and what they need. And you can be a facilitator, even if you don't have, someone who does, or you help them put out the call. I'm really good at that, actually. Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's opening of heart. And of course, that's when you receive, and it's just like, woo. I mean, that's that. Oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. This, what, we're going to have how about this? We have multiple slogans under burning it. And one of the slogans is that more beautiful world your heart knows is possible. Our hearts know is possible. Just borrow it. Screw it. Right.
Open source.
Pardon me?
Open source.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pay it forward.
Just got a question. That virtual, we have to transform the virtual into real time, on the ground time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. How do we take the experiment out of the desert? Has been for 20 some years, 25 years, the bewilderment. I'll constantly hear, how do we take this out of Burning Man and bring it into the default world, is something I hear every burner say, because they just like, this is so magical and wonderful and miserable. And all, the full dimensionality of being human. How do we wake people up to being human and all these beautiful things too? and they don't. And everyone, I've heard people trying to re-engineer Thanksgiving to those words, giving and saying thanks. A lot of people have these experiments, but this COVID time has been. It's clear it's transformative. It is the obelisk. And then Burning Man shutting down. It's not doing the festival on the playa all of a sudden, but the theme this year is called multiverse. So this year's Burning Man theme is multiverse. And so the theme is carrying on in the multiverse, but nobody knows what that means. And so the creative is now struggling. How does Burning Man is not canceled, just out on the playa is canceled. So what does that mean? So this is the creative challenge. And so it sounds like where we came in this discussion is it will happen.
Yeah, exactly. It will happen. And another slogan is we finally took it out of the desert. We finally got it out of the desert.
It was way too hot over there, wasn't it?
It's hot, and it's interesting because I had a camp. I was a leader in a camp that we had a lot of amenities, and there was always a struggle because I always say I want people to feel safe, but but their being comfortable is not really important. I really saw the value of them. If they knew they were safe, that they were taken care of in that way, but their comfort was not the top priority. The reason the comfort is not the top priority is that they really had to feel the struggle of their being human. And I found that it's really valuable to deal with your body and your emotions and all these things that are going on with you, instead of just having them comforted away. Having to confront it and to work through it. And that's where a lot of beautiful things happen. It kind of cracks them open. They deal with their challenge. They have to now deal with personal challenges. It opens them up to being triggered. Then they have to deal with the triggers. And we have a lot of people who can help work with them in that, to work them through the processes. And then they've all of a sudden realized that, this barrier in their life was completely bogus, and they just in an instant have dissolved it, and they're free. So I used to be blown away in our camp that I would witness 5 major life transformations a day. Nothing was the same after it moment, and they would go through a complete breakdown and a resolution, and it's phenomenal to watch. But it happened through being uncomfortable. They had to deal with the emotion. They had to deal with the heat. They had to deal with all these things of being human. They couldn't just comfort it away. So I think that is a really important instrument that happened on a desert, and that's why I'm pretty good with that. And I commend people who take that on, because it is a big deal for some people. The physical demand can be really scary.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like doing sweat lodge, being in that kind of heat. It totally takes you into another realm. And there's something about discomfort which brings us back to aliveness. And when you get too comfortable, you're not feeling that any longer. And you have to get cold, and you have to have your feet in the cold water, and you have to get hot, and you have to be tired. It's a ritual and an initiation.
It's funny, as hearing both of your words, I'm reminded of the 24-hour collective intelligence block party, right? Mm-hmm. Which I, moderate for the most part, right? Nolan also helps out a ton. Melissa's super supportive. So, it takes a village to raise a block party. But it's kind of like that. It's kind of like going through, and, and James, who hangs in there, Emery, totally. We've got some really beautiful diehards, and we all go through it once a week now, because that's what Mother Earth is.
Oh God, the humans are out again. Turn your motors off.
That's like a burning block party. Okay?
Yeah.
I just also wanted to say something, what you had said, it's in reference to something you said, Stephen, a while ago about, how do we raise the consciousness? And I think a large part of it is working with the children. And then the children bring what they're taught home to the families, to the parents.
Do you have an age bracket for those children?
Preschool
Okay.
and
Yeah,
kindergarten.
we got a president that's a child.
Elementary. Yeah, well, this is Araman. He's no chance changing him. And the other thing is really honoring First Nations people. That's going to be a big one.
Honoring impersonation.
First Nations
Oh,
people.
First Nations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. You say that you're bringing in an element. We are it's still running through our camp themes, even in a call last night. We at our camp at 1 year, we do major infrastructure. We do a very big camp with a lot of infrastructure. And at the end of our 2015 burn, we saw Standing Rock come up, and we basically had all the logistics worked out. So we headed our trucks out to Standing Rock. There we created community centers. We became a major part of that thing, in that we gained the trust of the elders. In 2017, we created a chance for them to have the first experience at Burning Man. We created a medicine wheel out on the playa for them to share their rituals. The elders were were seeing the extinction of their culture and took a daring thing to go against tradition to share their rituals.
Yeah.
And they were doing there. And there's a lot of really fascinating experiences with the local Paiute and so forth.
Cool.
And so they were educating us about the land. And one of the elements, what they were really talking about the different tribes of human and how we're associated with these different elements. So, for instance, the Native American or indigenous are known as the earth people. So their element is earth. The white man is fire. And one of the chiefs was looking at all these white people celebrating the fire, and he says, "This is it. This is the problem with the white man is they're out of control. They have lost grasp of their element. They are not one with their element."
Wow.
And when he saw that them come around the fire, and he says, "This is it. We need to bring people back around the fire and have the basic conversation about what does respect mean to you? What does generosity mean to you? What So they really were seeing these. It was fascinating to have this experience through their eyes. So yeah, that the First Nation are really powerful teachers about our spaceship Mother Earth.
Yeah.
They see Earth as grandmother, and they see everything as brother and sister.
Yeah.
So when that really was transformative for me, because as the Caucasians, and most when we've gotten into this ascension fixation or this progress, that we always look up, and we're looking the Father sky, and we don't look down.
Yeah.
And so everyone looks up and sees a different God. Whatever their goal is, they see that God. And we're looking up, and when we look down, we don't see brother and sisters. We see somebody that sees a different God, unless of course we beat them into believing they see our God. I mean, but we have this disconnect relationship with each other. Then they look down and they see mother, and when they look up, they see brother and sisters. So they see the plants, which are the trees. They call trees the tree tribe. There's these different tribes of beings, and so plants are beings, and squirrels are beings, and buffaloes are beings. So they see brother and sister, and that's a very different philosophical shift.
Well, it's not philosophical. It's spiritual. It's not in the mind. It's from the heart. Different. Philosophy comes from the mind, right? Wisdom, philos, and the native are connected through spirit. To spirit.
They see a spirit. They don't see. They don't have grasping I need to live forever, because in their minds we do live forever. We just move. Or as one Native American would say, I hope I don't come back as a rock. So
I don't know.
these-
Rock might be kind of cool, actually.
I don't know. He didn't seem to be thrilled about that idea. He'd be fine with a grasshopper, but
That's cute.
but and one of the elements that was gripping with one of the conversations I had on it with and it was stumbling over English, and he was explaining, well, English is a second language, but what he said, he was English is a language that bothers them a lot because it's a language of lies. He says it's about images and perceptions, and he says in my language it's a language of feelings. And in our language, when I feel you and you feel me, we can trust each other. And it was a very interesting, because when you listen to his translation, he speaks much more from that feeling side of himself. He's trying to create relationship through feeling versus relationship through image and idea.
So he's in the divine feminine, essentially.
I don't think he would think so. But he's very much into this is well, so you could say all the Native Americans are in the divine feminine. They're in a relationship model. They don't have this evil. There's no devil. There's no angel. There's just spirits.
Right.
Some are troublemakers, and some aren't. And like this man, he lives on his property, and when he talks about all the animals on his property, like about their personalities and so forth, and it's a relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Now What class. I just posted it up because one of the community members offering a class, just inviting indigenous people and allies to come talk. But I just threw it up there. You don't have to look at it now. You can actually just go to Now What calendar.
Okay.
Sorry, this is totally the opposite of what my intention was. I didn't want to interrupt, but I saw you started reading it, which obviously you would.
Well, we could sing you a Haida song that thanks Mother Earth for all that she provides us with, if you would like.
That sounds like if I'm getting to a point where I need to break for dinner, that would be a beautiful ceremony.
Okay.
For transition.
I would love it. I've just been writing something I needed to get done, so this has been great.
So I just tell you how I know this briefly. I carved canoes with a Haida for 14 years in Seattle. I'm adopted into the Haida tribe. I'm in the Raven clan. Mabel Norris adopted me, and I learned their songs in some of their language. This is giving Mother Earth thanks for all that she provides us with. So it's a gratitude song. Yo-ho, yo-ha, hiela, eh, hey, eh, hiela, ah, hiala, ah, hiala, ah, hiala, ah, hiala, yo-ho, yo-ha, hiela, eh, hey, eh, hiela, ah, hiala, Ahiala, Ahiala. Woo! Bon appetit. Enjoy your meals.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
See you next time.
and by the way, Liza, since you like listening to this kind of work, this kind of discussion while you work or do other things, I invite you to hang out at the block party as well.
Yeah, come join us.
And also at the Solution Club. Anyway, it's all up on radish.org.
Thank you. I already looked it up.
Awesome.
Cool.
Pleasure
Wow.
to meet you. Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, we'll be
care.
hanging a few more minutes. I just want to thank you, Stephen. Oh my goodness, so amazing hanging with you and working with you on all
It's been
this.
fun.
This is just incredible. I am so
Okay.
excited.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you, Jamin, for hosting and making this all flow. All right.
Absolutely.
Take
And-
care, everybody.
So see you at the block party.
I'll try to make it. Yeah, I got 24 hours of the hit in that window.
And you can just pop in and out, just whenever you feel like it. Just pop in and out, no problem.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Everett, take
All right.
care.
You too, Stephen. See you soon. Take care. All right. Well, it's just us radishes now. We're still recording, and wow, my goodness.
Dinner?
Yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up here. I'll be in. Yeah. Man.
It's a wrap. It was
Here, I'm just gonna pause just so we